Good morning and welcome to the webinar. My name is Jeff Lewis and I'm a Director of Employee Benefits here at Cornerstone. I cover Northeast Ohio. Sorry for the delay in getting started. We will definitely get things done by the end of the hour for you today, but we did have a little trouble getting everyone together. So let's get going here. Before I get started, I just wanted to cover one thing with everyone regarding the fact that this is an online CE. So the ODI requires that we do some interactive polling with you all. So we're going to stop the presentation a few times here and ask some just random questions to make sure that everyone is online and paying attention. So look for those as we go through here. This is my contact information up here on the screen. Be sure to follow us on social media and get in contact with me if you have any questions. A couple more things I want to cover before we jump in here. I want to make mention of our new broker portal, AGB broker portal that we just launched for all of our broker partners. And it's a one-stop shop for managing your book of business through Cornerstone, from carrier and client information to commission schedules. So make sure you check that out. If you have some questions about that, contact your broker advisor or the AGB support team. And finally, how would you like to win $7,000? Our 2022 Cash Incentive Program is in the works, and you can earn individual and group points toward cash prizes. Just register for that on our website. All right, at this point, I am going to turn things over to Scott Krebs and Matt Meyer with Delta Dental and start today's CE program.
Well, my name is Scott Krebs. As Jeff had said, thanks for the intro, Jeff. I'm an account executive at Delta Dental of Ohio, and appreciate everyone spending some time with us today, and apologize for the little delay there. So today we're going to be talking about comparing dental networks, evaluating size and savings, and I'm sure everyone on this call would agree that every time a dental carrier rep has been in your office, they say we have the largest dental network and we have the deepest discounts. So today we're going to sort of walk through, Matt's going to walk through how to make sense of that and compare, because not everyone can have the largest network and the deepest discount. So the course today is going to focus on how to accurately assess the dental network value. Matt's going to provide some examples of some of the most common causes of network overstatements, as well as reasons for inconsistencies between carriers in determining network savings. So a little background on Matt. Matt Meyer is the manager and actuary at Delta Dental of Michigan, Ohio, and Indiana. He has over 8.5 years of actuarial experience in health insurance, and he is a fellow of the Society of Actuaries and a member of the American Academy of Actuaries. Matt received his undergraduate degree in mathematics, specializing in actuarial science from Michigan State University in 2013. And now in his 6th year at Delta Dental, he's taken on responsibilities including corporate forecasting, rate filing, and overseeing reserve valuations, among other items. In addition, he attained his FSA credential in 2018, and he is currently the manager of the actuarial department at Delta Dental of Michigan, Ohio, and Indiana. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Matt Meyer.
My name is Matthew Meyer. As you can see, I'm a manager for actuarial services at Delta Dental of Michigan. We work with many of the deltas across the country, and certainly with Ohio and Indiana as well. So I'm here to talk today about comparing dental networks, our best practices in evaluating network size and savings. So let's get started, since we're a little late. So to properly analyze dental networks, there's a couple of obvious components that are needed. We need to know the size, the dentists, the doctors that are involved in the network, the utilization with those those providers. And then also we need to know the depth of our savings, our discounts. So in order to do that, we don't need to not just worry about our size and our savings in our network, but also out of our network as well. So there's now we're up to 4 components here, but that's going to be okay. We can handle that. Why is this automatically? More problems. And then it gets even more complicated here if we also add more than one network, for a carrier. So many carriers have more than one network. Now we're talking about size and savings of that first network, the size and savings of that second network, and then of course we still have our out-of-network size and savings as well. So now we're up to 6 components. It's getting a little complex, and we're still only talking about one carrier here. So if we want to compare between carriers, we've got carrier A, who we just looked at, and then we've also got carrier B here. Maybe they only have one network, but they still have out a network. Now we're up to something like 10 components. And so this is getting to be a lot to kind of digest, diagnose, and be able to compare these networks between carriers. So what we want to do is we want to be able to pare this down into really one component that we can use and compare between carriers. So where we're going with that is something called effective discount, which is going to be our total percent savings from all of the dentists' combined submitted charges. So the effective discount is going to be an ideal comparison. We can make it client specific, excuse me. And it'll really just show the percent of the total costs that are going to be saved by each network. So we can compare the effective discount of carrier A to the effective discount of carrier B. And that's going to make it a lot cleaner to look at or to diagnose than trying to parse out these 6 components for carrier A versus 4 components for carrier B and try to figure out where the most value is based on that. So the one obstacle with getting to effective discount is going to be complete and quality data, and we'll get into that as we go too. But it does require that we have some good data from each carrier. So before we get to effective discount, we want to break down each of the 2 main components of a dental network, the size and the savings. We're going to get in depth with each of these, and then we'll be able to build up to that final effective discount that we're talking about. So to start with size, the utilization piece, what we want to start with is a question here for all of you to ponder, and hopefully it registers. But have you guys all had multiple carriers tell you that we have the largest dental network? And how would that be possible, that multiple carriers could tell you we have the largest dental network? So we're going to get into some of the ways that dental networks are overstated. And of course, this is going to cause problems to be able to accurately compare network sizes if carriers and networks are being overstated. So just a quick summary on a lot of the ways that overstated. So we've got dentists that are retired, dentists deceased, they've lost their license is lapsed, they've moved employers, or a big one that they work at a group practice, but not the particular location of that group practice. So in any of these cases, if that dentist is still in a carrier's provider directory, then that network is going to be overstated. And we know provider directory is ever going to be perfect. So all of these items come up all the time in provider directories and overstate networks. So 2 of the biggest ways that the overstatements happen are rental networks and group practices, and we'll look at each of these individually as well. We'll start with rental networks, and the biggest thing with rental networks is that if we have those issues where a dentist is deceased or is no longer practicing, any of those issues get multiplied when we start talking about rental networks, because every every carrier who is using that network, that rental network, is going to be overstated. So, you know, they might be only in that one rental network, but it's being used by 10 carriers, then we've got 10 overstatements. So, and the dentists themselves don't always know all of the networks that they're in. They might be in one network, but you know, they might not know who's renting that out as well. So it might not even be something that the dentist knows. An example of how rental networks kind of work you can show here, especially if we look at networks like 8, 9, 21. So this is the networks across the top, 21 different networks, and then just a whole stream of carriers, unidentified carriers here. So you can see across the diagonal here, this would be basic proprietary networks, you know, carrier 2 owns network 2 probably, that kind of thing. But you can see in a lot of these, so network 6, 8, 9, 21, where there's not only multiple carriers, but a lot of carriers that are using these networks. So these would likely be rental networks. And so you can see how many networks, you know, a carrier might be involved in as well for this. So back to kind of what I was mentioning there is that one bad apple spoils the bunch, meaning if we have one issue in our network directory, all of the rental networks or all of the carriers that use that rental network will be affected. So and an example of that here, just look up Dr. Smith, who works on 123 Elm Street. He directly participates with one network, Network A. So he's worked with them. There's been negotiations. He's in Network A, and he might not even know that Network A is rented out to B, C, D, and E. So you know, he's thinking he works in one network. That network directory needs to be kept up to date. But if not, he's indirectly participating in 5 networks. And so what happens here is, let's say that Dr. Smith changes employers, he moves, and now he's practicing at 789 Oak Road. So Network A adds their Dr. Smith to their directory at 789. They want to make sure that he's listed there, but they're not as motivated to remove him from the directory at 123 Elm Street. So now this doctor is no longer practicing at Elm Street. That's an issue. So we're overstating Dr. Smith. We're showing him as having 2 different practices. And this isn't again, with the rental networks, this isn't just a problem in Network A, but it's a problem in all 5 networks. So another big way that these issues can multiply is group practices. So you see some of the common group practices down there. So the way this presents issues is that in a clean dental network, dentists will only be listed at the locations where they practice. So they might be a part of Aspen Dental, but they're only going to be listed in the address or maybe a couple of addresses where they are actually practicing. In an overstated dental network, though, they'll be listed at most, if not all, of those group practice locations. So you can see, you know, something like Aspen Dental, and we have an example of this coming up too, but that has, you know, many locations. If we're talking about that dentist being listed at all of those, that's a clear overstatement of the network. So just some more examples for you. We've got 4 locations here, 4 dentists, Dr. Purple, Orange, Red, Blue. And each dentist say that they only practice at one location. So what we want to talk about now is how this actually shows up in our data. So we want to know how many unique providers and access points will a clean directory show versus an overstated directory. In a clean network, and sorry, I should back up. We're also going to have 2 examples of this. The first one we're going to start with is a large search region. So we're going to get into the differences if you're searching statewide versus locally, and some of the overstatements that can happen that way too. So starting with this example as statewide, if we were looking up these dentists in our search area was the entire state, a clean network would show each dentist only being listed at the location that they practice at. So Dr. Orange would be listed with location 1, purple with 2, and blue with 3, and red with 4. And so that would be a clean network. In overstated network, each of these doctors would be listed at each location. And so you can see here that in the clean network, we'd have 4 unique providers. That's each of those doctors. And we'd also have 4 access points. So you can go see Dr. Orange at location 1. That's 1 access point. You can go see Dr. Purple at location 2. That's 2. So 4 providers, 4 access points. Where we see the issue is in an overstated network is we still have the 4 unique providers. So if I go back, we still only have, the 4 doctors that we've been talking about here. But what we have an overstatement in is access points. The overstated network would list 16 access points, and that's because we could see Dr. Orange at location 1, Dr. Orange at location 2, Dr. Orange at location 3 or 4. So that's 4 just for Dr. Orange. And then same for each of the other doctors. So that would list us as 16 access points, but we know that's not actually true. We can't see Dr. Orange at location 3. So that's a overstatement to the network. So the larger search regions, as I was mentioning with statewide, will tend to show an overstatement in access points, but very little or no overstatement in unique providers. So we didn't have an issue searching statewide. We didn't have an issue with unique providers. But let's look at a smaller search region.
Yeah, I'm going to hold you up here and do a poll question now. Make sure we got everybody paying attention. So I just launched a poll question. So if everyone would please respond to that poll question. Also, we will make sure everyone gets their CE credit for this program. We probably have your national producer numbers already on file at Cornerstone. If not, we'll reach out to you via email for it so we can submit everyone that attended over to Delta to make sure we get you credit. So I think we will close the poll now. And Matt, you can go back where you left off. Sorry for the interruption.
No problem. Is my screen sharing again? I'm not sure if the poll interrupted it.
Good.
Okay, we're all set. Cool. Yeah, so we were talking about the overstatements in the larger search region. So I want to do an example of a smaller search region too. So again, if we said that these dentists were throughout the state, but what if we wanted to do a search for providers just on the county level? And what does that look like for a clean network versus an overstated network? So in the clean network, let's say that location 3 is the only one located in the county that we're searching. We would see only find Dr. Blue, and we'd only find location 3. Network, we would have that 1 unique provider and that 1 access point. But again, here in an overstated network, we would see location 3, but now we would see all 4 of those doctors listed as part of location 3. So not only does this create an overstatement in access points like we saw in the larger search area, we're showing 4 access points instead of 1. We're also overstating the number of unique providers that are in this county because orange, purple, and red are now showing up in this county because they're listed at location 3, and they don't actually practice in this county. So now we're overstating our unique providers. We're showing 4 when there's really only 1, and we're overstating our access points. We're showing 4 when there's really only 1. So the smaller search regions tend to show overstatement in both unique providers and access points. Unique provider counts and access points in third-party network size reports will be inaccurately high for carriers who overstate their provider counts and use small search regions. So this is just kind of a summary of the examples that we saw here, the ways that the networks are overstated, both in provider counts and in small search regions. So now we've kind of gone through some of the pitfalls or issues with network sizes. So we want to talk about what we should do to accurately compare network sizes. And there's a few ways that we can compare network sizes. Some are obviously better than others, and so we'll go through the pros and cons of each of these. So different ways that we can compare network sizes would be geo-access. So just simply stating the number of doctors that are in, a certain distance radius. The number of access points, which we talked about, doctors and locations. The number of locations would be another one, and then the number of unique providers. So we've kind of talked about each of these. We can compare carrier A or network A with network B and say, the number of locations that you're covered in, or the number of unique providers that you're covered in. But what we want to try to get to, and you can see that these are listed from the worst to the best ways of comparing networks. What we want to get to is actually looking at utilization. Utilization by providers and utilization by submitted claims would be the best way to compare networks. And we'll get into an explanation of what that looks like as we go through each of these. So going back and starting with geo-access, the pros here is that it's better than nothing. If we don't have any other information, this can give us an idea of, in a certain geographical area, which network is listed with more providers. The downside is it doesn't provide our percent utilization for the effective discount formula. And I talked about, that we're trying to get all of this down to one number that we can use as a comparison, and that being effective discount. And we'll talk about the formula and how to calculate that at the end. But we do need our percent utilization client-specific data to be able to calculate that. So geo-access does not allow for that. And then another downside is that it's very limited information. So both you could be comparing two carriers, and you might look at a 10-mile radius, and both carriers have two providers, and so you would list those carriers as equal. But overall, for the whole network, carrier A might have 100 providers, and carrier B just has those two, and so those networks are obviously not equal. But by just looking at a geo-access report, we might see those as equal. So, and then the provider counts can contain overstatement. Providers who are listed in locations they won't practice dentistry. We talked about those examples already. So, geo-access is definitely susceptible to those overstatements. Access points, again, better than nothing, better than geo-access. So this example that's shown here would, this example that's shown down here would be three different carriers. One of them having 2,500 access points, 1,600 access points, and 1,200 access points, and so we would rank them as carrier A, B, C in that order. So, but the issues here again is we don't have our utilization percentage to calculate our effective discount, and then our overstatements and access points are extreme. And we saw that both in our small search area and in our large search area, those access points were overstated because of providers being listed at locations where they're not actually practicing. So this can provide drastically misleading results. A little bit better than access points would be locations. So this would be, we've got, in our example, we had that one dentist at that one location, and then carrier B having 4 dentists at the one location. So the downside here, as you can see, is that both of these carriers would be listed as one location. And again, that would be seen as equal. But really, carrier B has 4 providers there, would probably be able to handle 4 times the volume of utilization, and that wouldn't be captured just by looking at the number of locations in each network. And again, we still don't have our percent utilization for our effective discount formula. One more step above that would be our unique provider counts. So again, this is still better than nothing. And then, as we saw in our examples earlier, the overstatements in unique providers are typically not as bad as access points. So when we did that statewide search and we came up with our 4 color doctors, that was the correct, that was correctly stated, that there were 4 unique providers in the state. We did see And so in the cons, we did see, once we narrowed that down to a county level search, that there was an overstatement in unique providers because all of those doctors were listed, and not all of them were practicing in that area. So we can still have those overstatements in unique providers. That's definitely a downside. But if we're talking about, oh, please stop. Okay, if we're talking about just these quantitative counts of either providers, access points, locations, unique providers would be our best bet because the overstatements would typically not be as bad. And if we go back to what we saw in the access points here, where carrier A was 2,500, B was 1,600, and C was 1,200, that same example for unique providers, we can see that carrier A 1,100, carrier B almost 1,100, and carrier C 800. So the gaps between these carriers are not as significant if we're just looking at unique providers, and it's because we've removed a lot of that overstatement that was being caused by access points. So unique providers, again, would be our best, just strictly using counts. That would be our best bet, but we still don't have the utilization data we need for effective discount. So let's talk about,
All right, Matt, let me hold you there for a second as we switch stuff with utilization and do another poll question. Our answers, by the way, for the last question were 48% prefer fall, 36% summer, 18% spring, and 2% winter. So that was our results from the last poll. All right, so now I need to get another one.
I would vote for fall as well, just for the record.
How do I get the next question, Jessica?
There we go.
Oh, there it goes. So our next poll is open. All right, we've got 90% voting in. We're going to close it in 10 seconds.
Anyone who answered Coke is correct.
And Coke is the winner, 42%. Pepsi only 22%. 36% don't like either. So, all right, I'm going to close this one out and we'll get it back over to Matt. Thank you.
Perfect, thanks. Yeah, keep just jumping in whenever we need to do. So yeah, we're moving out from talking about ways of counting in order to compare size of networks into actually using utilization data. And so the pros for this is it's going to provide a % utilization, and we're going to be able to use that in our effective discount formula and get this down to one comparison number. The other major pro here is that the data is client specific. So we can run this data, tabulate this data for a specific client, and then we're going to be able to compare those networks and those carriers, for that client specifically, and not just in general, providing more value for them. And then the utilization here, I need to start in this step. So the utilization here is done by providers. So the example down here, carrier A, carrier B, in whatever search area that we're talking about, what the client specific data, we would look at that client's data and see that 179 of the providers that were seen were in network, and 17 of the providers that were seen were out of network. So 91% in network, not about 9% out of network. That's the % utilization that we're going to use in our effective discount formula. Carrier B here we would see is about 50-50. So 99 of the providers that were used in the data are out of network, and 99 are in network, and 97 are out of network. So this disruption, and a disruption report is just simply basically this example here, calculating the % utilization. This one was based on provider count. So because each provider has been given equal weight in this analysis, we might have some skewed results. And so that comes into play in our cons. So a provider who submits $100 in claims is weighted the same as a provider who submits 100,000. We're simply talking about counts here. We don't have any information about how often each provider was used. So a provider who was seen once counts the same as a provider who was seen by 100, 1,000 patients. And then another one of the cons here is if we have less than 12 months of data, we may not have the most accurate results either due to seasonality and different behaviors in different months. We really need the full 12 months to get a complete picture. And then the last con, which is the same with trying to get any of this data, this more detailed stuff, is that the current carrier may be reluctant to provide what we need for this calculation. So this is the first way to do the utilization. The disruption report is going to be our best bet, but our standard disruption report would be done weighting using submitted claims. So this would be our gold standard of comparing sizes of networks. We're going to get our percent utilization. We're going to, again, use that client-specific data. And this time we're going to weight it by submitted claims. So that provider that submitted $100,000 is going to get more weight than the one that submitted $100. And overstated providers in a carrier's network will not cause the results to be inaccurately high. So, we talked earlier about all those issues in comparing the size between networks based on providers being listed at locations where they're not actually practicing. Well, if that's the case, then they won't be submitting any data. They won't be submitting any data from those locations anyway, so we don't have to worry about that. We're only using actually submitted data here, so we're not going to have that any of those overstated issues. We still, even with the gold standard, we still have these a little bit of obstacles. We need 12 months of good data, and sometimes that can be a little bit of a challenge to get our hands on. The example here, these would be the same carriers that we saw on the last slide, but this time we want to weight our percent utilization by submitted charges. So in-network dentists in carrier A submitted over $1 million of charges, and out-of-network about 70,000. So that's almost 94% to 6% when we're just weighting it by providers 91 and 9. So a little bit of a difference there, this being a little more accurate and more catered towards where the actual claims are coming from. In carrier B, similar, but instead of over 50% in network that we saw in the provider count, a little bit under 50% if we weight it using the submitted charges. So that would be our gold standard, but we want to go back and see if you still don't believe that there are overstatements. We've got a couple more examples to really drive that point home. So this being Dr. Brandon Smith, we got this bio just directly from his website. It talks about him being from Belpre, Ohio, attending Cincinnati, blah, blah, blah. So what we know from this is the bullet points over here that Dr. Smith works in Cary, North Carolina now, but he's originally from Ohio. And we also know that he studied dentistry at West Virginia. So the question that we're asking with this is how many locations is Dr. Smith listed in? And if we go into an actual provider directory here, we will see him listed at least 31 times. We know he's only working and practicing in Cary, North Carolina, right down here where the arrow is. But you can see all of these locations that he's listed in Ohio. We know he's from Ohio, so likely that he would, maybe he started his career there, he worked at some of these locations, maybe others were part of the same group practice, but he is still listed at all of those. And we know that he's not practicing at all of those. And the reason we know that is that we can also look up his license. We see that his Ohio dentist license expired in 2015. So he can't be practicing at all of these Ohio locations, but he's still listed as all of those. So that would overstate the network for this directory. So To show you another example based on a specific location, let's take a look at the specific location for Dr. Smith on Bridge Street here, the second one listed in Ohio. And this is just the Google Maps or the Street View, view of that dental location. It's an Aspen Dental. It's right here as part of the strip mall. And in this location, the dental registry has at least 61 dentists listed. So just by looking at this picture right here, we can tell that there are not 61 practicing dentists in this one location. That is not a big enough building. We would think that maximum 5 or 6, and probably less than that, would be able to practice in that one building. But because it's a group practice, we're seeing at least 1 dentist listed for this building, and they certainly would not fit. So that's a good example of the way a location can be overstated. Some of our other key points, or to summarize some of our key points on network size, be aware of overstatements. I think we've provided some examples of the ways that this happened and the way that a specific issue would be multiplied through rental networks or group practices. One issue with a network directory could be multiplied and cause many more issues. Our disruption report that uses our actual claim data is better than our network counts. We won't have any of those overstatement issues if we're looking at actual submitted data. And so the disruptions won't be inaccurately high as compared to the network count. But if we do need to use the network counts, unique provider is our best bet. There can be still some overstatements in the unique provider. No network is going to be perfect, but it's going to be better than access points where all of those overstatements are multiplied many times, and access points which will be overstated no matter really what our search area is, whereas unique providers with a big enough search area are usually more accurate. So to wrap up the size portion of the presentation, the next time a carrier tells you that they have the largest dental network, the question that we want to ask is, what is your in-network utilization? So we want to talk about those utilization percentages in network. That is our best practice in comparing network.
I've just launched our last poll question for everyone. So if you could all take a look and respond to that one. And Matt, I did get a question here that you might ponder while everyone's polling, which is, what has Delta Dental done to end all this nonsense and confusion regarding the misrepresentation of networks, I'll say?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Or if you can answer now.
Oh yeah, sure. And I'll let Scott, if you have anything to add when I'm done with this, feel free. But yeah, so what we do on the actuarial side of things is we're in charge of calculating and running all of these disruptions. So whenever we can get our hands on the quality data, the 12 months of data, we will run that through our disruption program and be able to say in our networks what the in-network and out-of-network utilization would be, so that we're able to compare. When we're out talking to clients, we can talk about our networks in comparison to other carriers' networks in terms of that percent utilization and that being weighted on submitted claims dollars. So we whenever possible, we can use that disruption, that gold standard, the best way that we want to compare sizes.
Yeah, I think Matt hit that on the head. It's the best way is requesting a provider file from the current carrier of providers utilized over the past 12 months, and then we can run a disruption analysis and show group-specific results for that case, and show how many of the providers that members are currently visiting today, how many of those providers are in our network. So that as Matt said, that's the most effective way to do that. And he had mentioned there, you can get just providers and do unique providers, and that's better than nothing. But if you could get actual provider submitted charges, so the submitted charges for each provider that was seen over the last 12 months, and then compare, that to our network and return results as to what percentage of those submitted charges are in network.
All right, very good. Well, we are ready to go back to finishing up the CE, Matt, so take it away.
Perfect, thanks. Yeah, I know we've got a late start, so the savings part will be quicker, and I'll try to roll through it here for us. So now we're change focus and talk about the discount or the savings, and what we want to do to accurately compare savings between. And here's a list of our different options. We've got advertised savings. There's third-party studies out there that talk about savings. We've got savings guarantees, and then we can compare specific fees. And finally, our best, the equivalent of a disruption on the size side, is going to be a reprice on the discount side, and we'll talk about each of these again. So advertised savings, so this is our better than nothing here, and this is just what a carrier would put out, and they would say, average savings of 36% or negotiated fees 15 to 45% less than average. Again, better than nothing, but a lot of potential issues with this. We don't know the region that's being advertised. It probably doesn't match up with the client that we're talking to, at least not perfectly. And these average savings are typically provided national or statewide basis. And then, we don't know how much is being exaggerated or how much is rounding up. Nearly 25% savings could be 24.99 or 21%. That this bottom example here says up to 30% discounts. We don't know what that actually means. So there's a lot of gray area in what's being advertised and published. But again, better than nothing. So a step up from that would be our third-party network data. So there's studies out there like Rourke and Mercer. And so these are a good check to see if those advertised savings are plausible. There's regions in the report, so you can break it down. Probably still won't exactly match up with where the members are, but at least we're able to look at regions. The competitor data is blind or de-identified, so we don't know, which network corresponds to which carrier. We're not able to make those kind of statements. And then you need to rely on each carrier accurately reporting their data to that third party. So any issues there would flow through to the results of the study. Here's an example of an effective discount study from Rourke, where it lists, each network. We've got region X, all dentists. We can break it down by class of benefit and tell you what the overall effective discount is. So it'll rank these networks, and this is one that was submitted to Delta. So we can see where we rank, which network is us, but we don't know, who all of the other competitors would be. So it can give you an idea, of where one competitor might be, but it's tough to compare specific competitors and again, specific regions. So the third way that we can look at savings within a network would be performance guarantees. So if the carrier is guaranteeing those savings, then it certainly means a lot more than just what's being advertised. And the guarantee can be client specific too. So we can know specifically for that client what discount is being guaranteed. But on the content side, if there's a financial penalty that's not great enough, the carrier can provide a really good sounding guarantee, but never really have any intention of meeting it and just paying that penalty. And certain carriers are more aggressive on their guarantees than others, so it doesn't necessarily give us an idea of the strength of network. If a savings is being guaranteed by one versus another, that might be great and it might sound great, but we don't know their in-depth strength of their network from what they're guaranteeing. We can also compare fees, so this will be the next few, and this is better than nothing. But the lowest fee or discount, if we're just looking at a specific service and trying to see who has the lowest fee, a carrier can cherry pick that fee from the provider with the lowest negotiated fee. So they can find their dentist that they've negotiated the lowest fee with and cherry pick that one to advertise. Results won't be client specific, and on the fee side, we need to know the average submitted amount or average submitted discount to calculate our network savings. And so this is going to come into play again when we get to our effective discount calculation. And then lastly, the submitted amounts may include disallowed claims like duplicate or denied claims. And so we have those same cons on our next one, which is still comparing fees, but now we're comparing the maximum allowed fee. So this provides a better sense of the network value than just cherry picking a lowest fee. But a downside is that if the submitted fee is lower than that maximum allowed fee, the network is not getting credit for that savings. So if the maximum allowed fee for a service is $100, but the dentist is only submitting $90, we're counting that as $100. So the network's not getting credit for a dentist who's submitting something lower than the max. And again, our results are not client specific. So if we are comparing fees, our best option here is average allowed fee or discount. This provides a good comparison of network savings when it's done correctly. So if a submitted fee is lower than the allowed fee, then the network is getting credit for that savings. So in my 90 versus 100 example, we would be giving credit for that 90. We'd be counting that as 90 when we calculate our average allowed fee. We still don't have client-specific results, and then our cautions about submitted claims, including disallowed claims, still remain as well. So our best option here is a claims reprice, and this is on the network savings side is the equivalent of a disruption. So these results would use client-specific data. So our results would line up exactly with the client that we're trying to do this comparison for. And it provides a great comparison of both in-network and out-of-network savings and utilization. So this is down here as an example of a reprice. Basically, we would take the total submitted dollars, we would get rid of the excluded claims. I'm not sure if you guys can see all the details here, but we've got more examples of this. But basically, we would get down to the point of the total amount that is being paid versus the submitted amount into a percentage. So we'd be able to say that the total network savings, we'd be able to quantify a dollar amount and the percent of submitted charges that are being saved, being our discount. Our cons are we still cannot compare incumbent carriers' actual savings to a competing carrier's reprice savings because they're not going to be consistent. So we need to perform a reprice on both carriers, both the incumbent and the competing carrier. And then this calculation and how reprices are done are not consistent across carriers either. And we've got an example of that as well. Real quick, just back, so we've got some warnings here, some example warnings. So back to our comparing submitted fees. If we've got 4 dentists here, some of the issues that we can run into, so this would be, for a specific service, dentist 1 submitting 119, and so on, the maximum allowed fee, and then what's actually approved. So the average fee being $100, the lowest fee being $75, and then the approved or allowed being $71. Sorry, 85 and 84. Yeah, so these are the lowest. The lowest are down here, the averages are up here. So we talked about comparing dentists using the lowest fees. And in that case, we'd have dentist 1 or maximum allowed fees, sorry, we'd have dentists 1 and 2 at $95 and 3 and 4 at $75. But what we really want to point out here is looking at dentist 4. So if we were just talking about lowest or allowed fees, he'd be getting credit for $75. But what this dentist is actually submitting is $71. So we wouldn't be capturing this additional value in dentist 4 only submitting $71 unless we use our average allowed fees. And so that's the difference between the 85 and the 84 here, is just getting credit for dentist 4 submitting that $71. And that's why our average fee is our best way of comparing. So our inconsistency across carriers, the other piece that we want to talk about is gross submitted versus net submitted. And this is that caution about those duplicate or eligibility denials of claims. The dentist gross submitted claims might be 1.05 million here. But if we get rid of those $50,000 worth of duplicate or denied claims, their net submitted claims is $1 million. And where this makes a difference is when we're calculating the overall discount. If we submit it, or if we calculate it from gross submitted, it's going to look like it's 23.8%, assuming that the allowed amount is $800,000. So we're saving $200,000 in either case, but it's 23.8% if we divide 200,000 off of the 1.05 million. And what we really want is the 200,000 off of the 1 million of net submitted claims. We don't want to give the network credit for those duplicates and eligibility denials. That doesn't have anything to do with the value of the network. So a more accurate savings percentage here would be this 20%. So this is kind of an example of a reprice and basically inconsistency across carriers. So when we do a reprice, we have to match our data that's coming into our network. And so to match a provider from the data to the network, there's a few different ways we can do it. We can do it on their TIN, their license number. We can do it on zip codes altogether. We can do it on their names. And so this slide is just showing, and I'm going to go through it kind of quick because I know we're running out of time. This slide is just showing that based on what we use to match, we're going to get different in-network utilization. So our actual claims might be 61.7. A good reprice might show that somewhere in the 62.3 range. But if we start using more generic matches, we're going to end up counting more providers in our network, have a higher in-network utilization, and higher overall discounts. So between carriers and how quality of data that we get can have big impacts on the results of our disruptions and reprices. And so that's another big warning. And different carriers are going to do this a different way. So to wrap this up and actually get to our effective discount here, we're back to comparing carrier A and carrier B. Again, two networks for carrier A and one for B. And we want to boil this down and say, make a one-to-one comparison on these carriers. So to get to effective discount, we're going to take our average savings and weight it by our network size. So we're going to take the size of each network, our utilization percentage, and the discount of each network, and calculate a weighted average of each of those for each carrier. And that's going to be our effective discount. So we'll do it 3 times for carrier A and twice for carrier B and sum those up, and we'll get there. So in this example, carrier A, 35% of that utilization. And again, this will be client specific. So that's one of the big pros of having the actual data. 35% of their claims were in network 1, 60% in network 2, and 5% were out of network. And then we've got these associated savings with each network 2. So our network 1 obviously has a deeper discount than our network 2. So if we weighted average this, each of these networks and our out of network, carrier A has an effective discount of 23%. Carrier B is more split up. They have 55% in network and 45% out of network, with 30% savings in network and 10% out of network. So if we multiply and sum those up, our effective discount for carrier B would be 21%. So now we can simply look at 23% versus 21% and say that carrier A's networks are providing more value than carrier B's. And that would be specific to the client that we're talking about. So the effective discount provides a comparison of overall network value for the client and the member. We're measuring the dollars that are saved from the dentist submitted fees, both in and out of network. It does not provide a comparison of paid claims. So effective discount is calculated before our benefit design is applied. We're trying to measure the value of the network itself and not take into account the how rich or not rich the actual benefit designs are. So paid claims would be calculated after the benefit design, and the calculation between the submitted claim amount and carrier's allowed claim amount, but before plan pay amount. So that's where the calculation would be done. So real quick, just be one more warning here when we're talking about effective discount is we want to be cautious of where the savings are coming from. So if we want to increase our effective discount, we can increase the amount of savings that we're getting on our in-network claims. We can increase the amount of claims that are coming from in-network providers, or we can increase our in-network utilization percentage. But another way to increase effective discount would be to increase our out-of-network savings. But the downside here is that those savings would be billed to the patient. So that value isn't being passed to the actual member. And so with our carrier A, carrier B example, we've got a discount to the group of 23% versus the 21%. And so those are the two numbers we're comparing. But the other piece that we want to look at is what percent is the patient being balance billed. And so again, in this area, carrier A is going to win, where the patient's only being balance billed 1% versus carrier B, the patient is being billed 4.5%. And that's because when we talked about carrier B, they had this much higher percentage of out-of-network claims. So if we push more of our claims to out-of-network dentists, we can increase our effective discount, but it's at the price of the member, which is not ideal. So very last slide here is just putting everything together. If we had $1 million submitted, 6,000 life exposure, this is our total carrier B to carrier A to carrier B comparison. The effective discount difference here, the 23 versus 21 was our 2% difference. It's $20,000 in additional savings. That's $3.33 per member. And in here too, if we're looking at the in-network total versus the out-of-network total, that's the other piece we want to look at. That's where we see the difference in what the member is going to be balance billed, being billed less in carrier A as well. So additional value that network is providing and not pushing those costs onto the member. So again, sorry for the technical difficulties and going a little bit over here, but that wraps up the presentation.
Very good, man. Thank you. Great job there, and really good information on really getting to the value of a network, which can be difficult to do with the way that they're marketed these days. So again, thank you all for attending today. I will ensure that you all get your CE credits, and feel free to follow up with me. If you have any questions, just give us a little time to get those processed and submitted through Delta. And you all have a great day. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.